internet YouTubers! Hi! So today's gonna be a nice lazy day video. Not much is gonna be going on. Got my comfy clothes, no makeup, a nice cup of peppermint tea. As you can tell by the title of the video, we're going to be talking about the time that I worked at Aeropostale. I went there sometime in August after like an orientation at the community college I was going to. I walk in, like I'm just kind of exploring the mall, and I decide to stop in Aeropostale and just get an application. So like I was prepared for when college started, and I asked if they were hiring and if I could get an application, and the manager, we'll call him Jeff, looked me up and down and was like, we are having group interviews tomorrow, would you like to come? And I'm like, heck yeah. So they had me fill out an application just for formalities and all of that. And so the next day I came back and was the only one that showed up to the interview. And I mean, it was what you would expect for an interview for like a retail store job thingy. Just asking like fashion advice, what you would do, is the customer always right, can you put together an outfit for me for what this person wants, just stuff like that. And at the very end, I got hired on the spot and said to come back the next day to set up my payroll and just do some paperwork and all that. I'm like, yeah, sure, no problem. I was still living at home when I was doing all this, and I got hired and all of that, which was an hour away from the mall that I was working at and the school I was going to. So I was doing a little under 50 miles one way to the city that, you know, I work and go to school to, and then would have to drive back a little under 50 miles to go back home. And so I went through a lot of gas, and I had several oil changes and stuff like that. So that ranked up quite the dent in my bank. But you know, I was just really excited. I had a job, I was starting school, and just all of that. So like I was wicked excited, and I just kind of pushed that to the side. And so when I first started, like I was really nervous because like I just didn't know how to approach people. I'm not one of those people that just goes up to a stranger and be like, hi, like can I help you? Blah blah blah. I mean, I kind of am now because of the retail job, but besides the point, I just kind of like would straighten clothes, make sure everything was stocked. And I remember my first day working, this like middle-aged woman comes up to me as she's leaving the store with her like purchases, and she's like, no one helped me my whole entire time here. I just dropped almost $200 on your store, and just no one helped me. This is such awful customer service. And she never approached me, and I mean, I should have like said something to her when she was still shopping, but being me, the newbie I was like, people know things. I was like, okay, I'm like really sorry, I hope you have a good day. Cause I didn't want to be like, well, don't blame me, this is my first day on the floor. And so like that's one of those things that really stick out to me. But after that, like I got really comfortable. I was able to make sales. The store isn't like commission based. It's just to see that everyone is pulling their own weight and stuff like that. Pay there was minimum wage, or still is minimum wage, yeah, I believe so, which is $7.50 in the state of Maine at the time I was working there, which was August 2014 to April 2015. And so like I was lucky if I got $120 every payroll, and we got paid bi-weekly, so we got paid every other week. And for me, most of my paycheck got split 3 ways. Gas, a very tiny sliver of it went to food, and the other huge chunk of it went to buying clothes at Aeropostale, because you have to like keep up with everything and like make sure you're up to date and the trends and all of that and the season and and all of that. So like your paycheck goes by really fast, especially if it's really small. And so that just, and I didn't get a dorm room until October, that following October, so October 2014, so that whole time, commuting and all that gas. Once I moved in, it helped with the gas money, so to get more hours, you really want to make sure you're pulling your own weight on the sales floor, so you get more hours, which means you get more monies, so you are, yeah. And the managers love to play favoritism. There was this one girl. We'll call her Summer. Summer was like a hummingbird on crack. She would go everywhere, blah, 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 in the front, in the back, to the side, diagonal, right, left, all around, you know what I mean. And we were supposed to stay in like our designated zones, so the front, middle, by the registers, and then in the Live, Love, Dream section, which was in a separate room behind the registers. What you would want to be in like the 2 middle zones, because that's where you're really going to make a lot of your sales, because that's where the customers tend to stay and like mull around, and if you got in the front, you were pretty much screwed. And if you got put in Live, Love, Dream, it was a 50-50. Either you're going to make a lot of big sales or you are barely going to make any sales. Just because that's also where like the changing rooms are too. So you're able to play gopher for people a lot easier. And so like I luckily was able to stay mostly in the middle zones. And I was really good at making sales. Like I was usually one of the top 3 people making sales. Once, obviously I got comfortable, and Summer was just everywhere, and she stole customers, and it made the rest of us look like we were doing a real shit job. Like, so many of us got tired of it. And one day, like, it didn't help that I was already having a bad day, so I went there to one of my managers, Jeff. He was, like, the head manager, and I was like, so, like, is there something we can do about this? Because it's not really fair to the rest of us that she's stealing our customers and we are pulling our own weight and we're trying really hard, but what do we do? And he's like, well, just try harder. And I mean, like, I can understand that that's what he would say, but like, he just, like, every one of the sales associates knew he favorited her because she like was able to put on like a fake persona of like this bubbly teenager and all of that, and was able to make the most sales because of it. Like, her and I were always neck and neck in sales, but and so then like the assistant managers like all also had their favorites too, which like you could also tell it wasn't as bad as Jeff and Summer, but still it was a nuisance. So Jeff would, the reason why he preferred Summer is because she would milk people of their money. And that's pretty much what they told us every time we got on the sales floor was make sure you milk them of their money. They love to like latch onto the like older customers, so like grandmas and like older aunts and uncles like that, because like you were more able to convince them to get lots of stuff that, people probably don't need or want, and like especially during Christmas time, like we were having a slow night once, and one of the assistant managers just like looked at me and one of the other sales associates. She's like, what are you doing? Being lazy? Go and attack. And it was just like, okay, so first you tell us not to like leech on to customers, and now you're telling us to attack them? Like, if I go into a store, like, I don't want that. That's gonna make me want to spend less or even just like get out and not buy anything at all. I'll just go to customers. I'd be like, hey, my name's Asia. Is there anything you're looking for? And then they'd be like, yes or no. And I'm like, okay, well, if you need any help, just let me know. Like I said, name's Asia. Give me a yell. I'll most likely hear you. And like I was able to joke with them, and I kind of put aside that I was a sales associate. I just kind of like talked to me like, yeah, whatever. And that's how I got a lot of my sales. And I mean, it did help to like buy a lot of the clothes there, because then people would be like, oh my god, what are you wearing? And I'm like, it's from here, and I would show them and all of that. But you had to be careful of what you wore, because sometimes the manager, Jeff, might call you fat. There was 3 separate times that he called me fat. Not like directly said it, but he's like, oh, I wouldn't even be able to pick you up, you'd crush me, or just really stupid shit. And then there was one time I was working, I was really excited because I got the part as Belle in Beauty and the Beast, and he's like, wow, they had to stoop low enough to hire a plus size model like you, and took all my might not to get fired that day. So it's safe to say that I put in my 2 weeks closer to the end of the school year. I was going to put my 2 weeks in at the end of April, but I put them in at the end of March. And so like the 2 weeks into April, those were my last 2 weeks. And so I got scheduled and all of that, and I asked them to work me a lot, but I asked my favorite assistant manager, who also liked me a lot and like understood where I was coming from, and he was able to get me in a lot of hours, so like I would have a nice last paycheck. And apparently Jeff had gone into the system, took away some of those shifts to give them to yours truly, Summer, and scheduled me to work the day after my 2 weeks is up. So I saw the schedule and I'm like, what? And he's like, oh yeah, well, we thought you wouldn't have a problem with it, since, you know, it's just the day after your 2 weeks ends and all that. We could really use you. And I just kind of was like, no, that's my last 2 weeks. I have plans, and just no. After how I was treated and all that, not gonna work there anymore. And so yeah, it was a awful time. I wouldn't recommend working at Aeropostale if like you get the vibe that the managers are like that. Don't work there. Try to work somewhere where the managers are really nice, because like I've talked to some other people who've worked at different Aeropostales, and they're like, oh no, yeah, like it was a great time, like I loved having it as my first job. And I'm like, yeah, nope, I had a shit time. And I told them, and they're like, oh my god, like, oh my god. And so yeah, if you're from my area, don't work at the Aeropostale at the mall that you know that I'm talking about. And so yeah, like I go in there still because that's where I buy my socks and underwear from, because they're the only places that are comfortable for me for socks and underwear. And there's a bean climbing up on the chair. And so like I still go there for those. Like I'm trying to find different places for jeans, because I don't know, I don't want to go in there a lot. And like every time I go in, Jeff is still there, and he just looks at me and he's all like, oh my god, Asia, hi, like how are you? And it's like, don't do this. And like I just kind of humor him and all of that. But so yeah, that was my work experience at Aeropostale. Have you guys worked in like retail stores or in the mall, places like that? What were your experiences? Bonus points if you worked at an Aeropostale. And so yeah, so that's it for today's video. Survive until next time, my fellow internet YouTubers. Bye.
Don't fall, my love, if you feel like I do.